Shalom. Shalom to the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel. First and foremost, before I get into my lesson, I want to start off by giving all praises unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders on great millstone that teach and that rule well today. And peace and salutation also to the fellow laborers that's in the ministry and the believers that scatter worldwide in all truth and sincerity day in and day out. Once again, I'm the brother Shaquat Gabar coming at you with another quick lesson. And right before I get into this lesson, this message or these videos goes out to you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, which we are the true biblical Hebrew Israelites according to the Bible, and also to the Israelite foreigners that are scattered amongst the heathen nations and that may take on the physical appearance or look of another nation. But if your bloodline goes back to Negro, Latino, or Native American descent by the seed of your father, you are considered an Israelite as well. Once again, Shalom. So basically, I just want to get into a quick chapter breakdown, reading 2nd Esdras, chapter 13, okay, starting at verse 1 through 11, okay? And basically, this, chapter is going to be about how, who the world, who the world called Christ, which his name is Yahweh Shai in the Hebrew, meaning he is the deliverer, okay? And of course, the Heavenly Father, okay? Name in the Hebrew is Yahweh, okay? Meaning he is, okay? And this chapter is going to how Yahweh Shai is going to return by the way of what the world call UFOs, which is in the scriptures known as the chariots, okay? And other, symbolic allegories in the scriptures when it comes to the so-called UFOs. They're known as the chariots, okay, which the word chariot means vehicles, okay? They're also known as clouds, okay, birds, mountains, okay? And when it comes to how Yahweh Shai is going to return, and in the time now that we're approaching, as Yahweh Shai is going to return to bring war against these nations' armies at the peak of the Third World War. And that's going to lead to ultimately this place, America, being destroyed by the way of thermonuclear missiles, and the chariots bringing fire as well, okay? Because simultaneously, while Yahweh Shai is bringing war to these nations' armies, the missiles are going to be launched, okay, courtesy to Russia, China, okay, Iran, okay, certain members of NATO trading on America, okay, and shooting their missiles upon this place, okay? When it comes to all those that got nuclear capability, and also during the time, like I say, Yahweh Shai bringing fire as well, okay, and war against these nations' armies, okay, as Yahweh Shai is going to make himself return from the heavens, okay, make his way over there in the east to fight against those nations in the Middle East, okay, when it comes to the heat of the Third World War, okay, then Yahweh Shai is going to make his way over here to the west, okay, to bring the total destruction to this place, America, okay, and that's also going to lead into, as well, Yahweh Shai redeeming the nation of Israel, okay, starting with the elect, okay, being delivered by the way of the chariots from out of the great destruction, okay. When it comes to the elect, the 144,000 and the 1/3 that's destined to be saved, that's a so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American descent, okay, according to Matthew the 24th chapter, verses 29 through 31, okay. Hey, but when it comes to the 2/3, they're going to be judged here in America, according to Zechariah chapter 13, verse 8, right along with these heathens, okay. And once Yahweh shall return to liberate the nation of Israel, or redeem the nation of Israel, starting with the elect, that's going to also lead into the downfall of Esau, Edom, the so-called white race, okay, after America be destroyed, okay, the land of Israel being cleansed, being destroyed by fire, okay, because the people that's over there are not the original inheritors, and, once America and Israel be destroyed, okay, America going to become a desert, okay, once the fire and smoke dies down, and never be inhabited again by nations, okay, but the land of Israel going to be cleansed just for us to rightfully own our land again once Yahweh Shai established the kingdom here on the earth, okay, and that's going to lead to these heathen nations, okay, that be reserved from the destruction or the aftermath of the Third World War, and Yahweh's second coming. That's going to lead to these heathen nations going into captivity, start with the biblical Edomites, okay, and the heathens that perish on this side, they're going to be reborn in the kingdom to be slaves, okay, from the heathen nations that remain after the destruction, okay, and the 2/3 that perish, they're going to come back in the kingdom, being sons and daughters of the elect, okay. But like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and get into it because I don't want to make this video too long. So this is Second Esdras chapter 13, verse 1. And it came to pass after 7 days, I dreamed a dream by night, and lo, there arose a wind from the sea, that it moved all the waves thereof. And I beheld, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven. So this is going to Yahweh with the hosts of angels, okay? Which the word host means armies, okay? The army of the angels, the chariots. And it says, and when he turned his consciousness to look, all things trembled that were seen under him. Okay, when Yahweh shall make his second coming to fight against these nations' armies. Okay. And whatsoever the voice went out of his mouth, all they that burned that heard his voice, like the earth filleth when it filleth the fire, and going into those concentrated laser beams that's going to be coming out of the chariots. Okay. And they show certain Hollywood production movies, okay, when it comes to world of the worlds, okay, war of the worlds, okay, on Independence Day, okay, these so-called alien invasion movies, okay, with the Battle of Los Angeles, a couple of just coming to mind, okay, but those Hollywood directors, okay, stole that from the scriptures, man, okay, but they put the narrative when it comes to these Hollywood production movies, that they little green creatures or gray creatures, okay. Now the angels, okay, is in angelic form as so-called dark-skinned men, okay, or black men, what they would call, okay. So the angels have a makeup as men, okay. It's just as Yahweh Shai, and when Yahweh Shai returns, he's coming back to show his true image and characteristics of being a so-called Negro from the tribe of Judah, okay. Hey, but like I say, these Hollywood production movies, they get the idea when it comes to these alien invasion movies from the scriptures, okay. And when we say that, when we make mention of things like that to the average Negro, Latino, Native American, how they stole those, scripted those movies, they got it from the scriptures, okay. And they say that y'all watching too much sci-fi movies, okay. Because the majority of our people are spiritually discerned, okay, when it comes to the capability of the power of Yahweh Shem Shai by the way of the chariots, okay, the angels, man, and how the strangeness of the salvation, okay, how the Lord is going to bring, okay, that's Wisdom of Solomon on chapter 5, okay, and it says, and whensoever the voice went out of his mouth, they all that burned that heard his voice, like as the earth filleth when he filleth the fire, okay, that concentrated laser beams coming out of the chariots, okay. And after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of the number from the four winds of the heaven to subdue the man that came out of the sea, okay. And that going into the multitude of men going into these nations' armies at the time of the Third World War, going to be gathered together over there in the Middle East, okay, fighting against each other. As we seeing now, things are stirring toward the Middle East, and these nations eventually going to have combat amongst each other, okay, with their military, okay, their space force, okay, because they're going to have their space force, and Yahweh Shah is going to return to fight against their space force, their military, okay, their fighter jets, okay, as they're going to try to subdue Yahweh Shah, as it says that the man that came out of the sea, okay, going into the heavens, okay, not actually the sea itself, that's on, when it comes to the land, okay, or the body of water, okay, even though the chairs are capable come out of the water, okay, but We know that Yahushua is coming from the heavens, okay, from the spiritual realm, okay, to enter into the atmosphere of the earth. Okay, that's why it's said that to subdue the man out of the sea. Okay, because you got the heavens also is made up a body of water. Okay, and such as rain. Okay, but let me continue on. So that's going into Yahushua coming from out of the heavens. And but I beheld, and lo, he had graved himself a great mountain and flew up upon it. Okay, and this mountain going to the gigantic or the massive chariot that Yahushua is going to come in. Okay, right along with the rest of the host of angels that's going to follow him. So that's what Esdras is describing, that great chariot as a mountain. But I would have seen the region or place without the hill was driven, and I could not. Okay, because it was actually a chariot. Okay, not a physical mountain. Okay, and it says, after this I beheld, and lo, all they that which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, and yet does fight. Okay, so they're gonna be terrified, but Yahweh Shema Shai gonna put the spirit on those nations to fight against him. Okay, and they're gonna be destroyed. Okay, and lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, he neither lifted up his sword, neither lifted up his hand, nor held sword, nor any instrument of war. Yeah, so because Yahweh Shai is not coming in the modern day warfare that these nations have. Okay, where they fighter jets. Okay, they they weaponries out of space. Okay, now Yahweh Shai is coming back in that spirit angelic power. Okay, the form of that angelic spiritual power, man. Okay, by the way of those chariots. So no chariots ain't gonna be carnal. Okay, or the flesh. Okay, that men have. Okay, when it comes to these military advanced weapons. Okay, Yahweh Shai is gonna come back on a whole nother level, man. Okay, spiritual power. Okay, angelic form. Okay, and it says, but only I saw he sent out of his mouth as it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests. Okay, going into the laser beams, the concentrated fire. And they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which were prepared to fight, and burned them up every one, so that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and smell of smoke. And when I saw this, I was afraid. So they're going to the aftermath. Okay, when Yahweh Shai bring war against these nations' armies, man. Okay, and decimate them. Okay, and like I say, leading to also the time of Yahweh Shai redeeming the elect of the nation of Israel. Okay, let me get this now. Get ready to close. Like I say, just want to do a quick, chapter breakdown. Second Esdras, 13. Okay, going to the first half. Okay, going to how Yahweh Shai is going to return by the host of angels that bring war. The contrary to popular belief, because still to this day, majority of our people in the world, when it comes to these Christians, okay, they think that when the Lord come back, he's coming back to bring all peace and harmony to all nations. Okay, they're thinking that the Lord is a so-called white man. Okay, now when Yahweh Shai return, okay, he's coming back to bring war, okay, and destruction, and only peace and salvation to the elect of the nation of Israel. So let's get this. This is Isaiah chapter 66, verse 15. For behold, the Lord will come with fire, and his chariots like a whirlwind, okay, to render his anger with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword will the Lord plead with all flesh, and the slaying of the Lord shall be many. Okay, so by the way of the chariots, bringing war, bringing fire, and the sword also representing the nuclear missiles. Okay, the Lord going to have destroying mainly this place of America. Okay, and it said the slaying of the Lord is going to be many. Okay, especially when it comes to this place of America. Okay, at that time. Okay, 2/3 of our people that's going to be judged by the way of fire. Okay, especially those of our people that take that RFID microchip, which is written in Revelation chapter 13 verse 16. Okay, and the judgment is written in Revelation chapter 14 verse 9. When it comes to those that take it, they're going to be destroyed by the way of the chariots and the missiles. Okay, right along with these heathens. Okay, once again, which there's no salvation for any other nation but the nation of Israel. Okay, and that, like I say, mainly starting with the elect. Okay, the 144,000 and the 1/3. Okay, so 2/3 of our people are going to be judged right along with these heathens, which the scripture go into, the slaying of the Lord shall be many. Okay, here in America, man. Okay, and you're going to have Lord bringing judgment on different other parts of the regions of the earth. Okay, by the way of the chariots. Okay, but the whole point of this lesson is how Yahweh Shah is going to return. Okay, by the way of the chariots, with a world called UFOs. Okay, and he's come back to bring war, judgment, and only salvation to the elect of the nation of Israel. So I'm going to go ahead and end the lesson here. And I pray that lesson will edify to the next time, Lord willing. Shalom to the hopeful elect. Shalom.